Yay, we're here. Thank you so much for being here. I'm super excited.
Yeah, thanks for
Thank you.
having me.
Thank
My
you.
pleasure.
Okay, so we're going to go for it.
Cool. Excellent.
Okay, welcome to Lead Stronger Longer, the podcast that inspires you to lead your life purposefully, personally, professionally, and do it in a way that is a positive, lasting impact. I'm your host, Stefana Johnson, and today we are diving deep into holistic leadership. As both a parent and an influencer, there is profound responsibility that comes with guiding others. I invited this next guest because I saw a presentation that he did that touched me so deeply, not only as a leader, but most definitely as a parent. And I will tell you that that's the leadership role that I take the most seriously. So I had to have him on. I'm so excited that he is here. So my guest today is Will Keller. He is a dynamic public speaker, he is a freedom activist, and he is a dedicated father. Will is committed to educating the public on the foundational principles of authentic liberty. As a featured content creator on the One Great Work Network, he is the co-creator of the FUNL conferences. We'll learn more about that.
Mhm.
And he is the host of his own live show. Will explores transformative topics like objective morality, spirituality, conscious parenting, and human behavior. Through his work, he sparks powerful awareness. I can attest to that. And he empowers individuals to embrace true sovereignty through natural law and holistic psychology. We've heard a lot about all these words, and I think it's kind of a buzz in certain movements. But I had to have Will here to take us deeper and really understand the nuances of this movement that's going on. Will, I am so excited to have you here. Welcome to Lead Stronger Longer.
Thank you, Stefana. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so we always like to start with your favorite quote or your mantra or a guiding principle. What's
Excellent.
yours?
So I go through so many, but recently I've been revisiting Manly Palmer Hall, fantastic philosopher in the 30s. And a quote that I've been sitting with is man's search for truth is a quest for self-discovery. And one of the main reasons why I like that quote is quest is a journey, and it's also the first portion of question, because that's where the journey starts, is asking a question either to yourself or externally to the world itself, but it always falls back to that inner work, that process, and that journey that one is going through.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I love how you can take and distill as you're communicating. And as you said, question, quest, all
Yeah.
through that. And that ties into really the my next question for you is ultimately what led to your specialization. There had to have been some pivotal experience or turning point in your life that led to your current roles in this movement.
Mhm.
What was that? Can you tell us that story?
Um, the catalyst was obviously one, becoming a father, 11, almost 12 years ago, and also going through my coming out of the music industry and falling right into, drug addiction and dark days, which was right before I became a father, and not knowing how I got myself into those situations. And being someone that always likes to question, very close with nature growing up, I always like to know the elements and the why of how things worked on a deep level, a philosophical level, and mainly a metaphysical level, even at a young age. So to find myself in, my own self-induced purgatory really was the main catalyst to looking at myself deeply and introspectively, and just diving into my own psychology and figuring out what makes me tick and how I operate and how do I develop my habits and conquering that beast that I did. And then, shortly after I became a father. So both of those two events in my life were the driving force, the springboard that set me on a journey not only within myself and my own psyche, even on a spiritual level, but what is going on the grander scale of the world, events, and why mainly. So getting down to the causal factors, and it led me to many great minds that have, influenced and helped me along the way.
I love these kind of origin stories because it allows for us to see that you didn't just show up perfect. And I think that that's the false paradigm that's perpetuated in our culture, is that there's no work involved, just show up and then magically everything is, perfect relationship, perfect house, perfect this, and there's no process.
Mm.
And in your presentation, and I'll make sure that the link is with this. The presentation that you shared where I discovered you is that you went through a key piece that was significant for me because I have been going through my own processing. And I definitely found that I constantly wanted to have everything perfect. Everything's supposed to be right. Everything's supposed to be this way. It's all. And you said something so significant to me, or that's the piece that landed. And that was that there is the piece of death that has to go.
Hmm.
Now, where does that come with regards to your struggle? Because you're clearly talking about your story like it was not, it was purgatory, but you have a smile on your face. And
That's
but
right.
can you take us down that real deep lesson in the
Sure.
struggle? Can you take us
Yes,
there?
absolutely. Another good quote is the universe demands a sacrifice, and that is the old you. And I think growing up with nature, growing up on a ranch and being close with nature and observing nature, death is equal to life, right? Nature is cyclical. So we have these cycles that we go through. It's objective. It's inherent to nature itself and within ourselves, right? We're interconnected with this system. So, looking back on my life and learning those lessons, I am not the person I was in my 30s or, even early 40s, 20s. That person has died psychologically, metaphorically, metaphysically, physically as well, right? The body's changing itself. So the question is, and the key is, did you learn the lessons? Did you actually grow? Did you shed your skin? And what is the takeaway from that? What is the integration and the lesson that you have learned? And how is that applicable to your life and to the world? I think we live, unfortunately, like you said, right, where in the modern age, that process is missing. There's a lot of people, mentally that are the same, that don't grow in principles in their spirituality um, for many years, right? Decades, and they stay the same. Um, and that is the process of self-discovery right there. I dove deep into that presentation of the rites of passage, where I was stating that every life event is a rites of passage, an opportunity, a lesson for you to gain wisdom, knowledge, and then apply that as wisdom. And these events can be impactful, and it's something that we shouldn't look at. Even the dark days and the dark events of our lives, sure, it can sting and it can hurt. We need to embrace that pain, integrate that, and it becomes a part of us, and it becomes a part of our story, our story arc, right? We're all on this hero's journey. And I strongly believe that at the end of our experience, right, when we go through that process of transmigration, we have that life self-reflection. We do view the story arc of our experience of life. And I feel like a lot of people don't integrate these events. They don't fully process um, and seek the opportunity of the potential events of their life. They kind of just go with the flow. The conditioning and the programming kicks in and kind of just fills in the gaps, and their automatic mind is in the driver's seat, so to say. So there's that lack of intention. So I can look back on, the dark days of my life, and I laugh at that now because I've learned the lessons. I am grateful for certain lessons because, where I'm at now in my life, it's due to those dark days and the blessed and happy days and the good moments. It was very synchronistic that the catalyst to kind of my journey of higher awareness started with, you know, drug addiction, just deep turmoil, but also the birth of my daughter, the love of my life, right? So you have this duality, and in relatively in the short same period of time, coming out of drug addiction, boom, becoming a father. I mean, the pressure of becoming a father is what kind of kicked me in to really diving deep into my own psyche and myself. So yeah, these events are huge opportunities, and we don't want them to go to waste. And we should be grateful for these opportunities.
Yeah, that's powerful. So, was there ever a time that you actually did fight that piece of you that was that you, as you talked about, needing to sacrifice that old self?
Oh yes, absolutely. I mean,
What does that
when
look like, and how did you navigate it?
Um, so my personality, like all my family members, and the time period I'm talking about was my drug addiction because I was coming out of the music industry, so it was a lot of partying, and it was just a habit that I picked up with this lifestyle. And when it was time to be like, okay, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm retiring from music. I'm not going out. It's time to grow up. All of a sudden, the addiction and this lower level of consciousness wouldn't allow me to do that. There's the physical aspect as well. So I drug that on because I refused to do that work, for a couple years, but no one really knew I was going through this turmoil because I buried it deep down into my psyche. Yet every morning when I wake up and look in the mirror, I'm the fear kicks in, and it's this dark cloud, like, am I going to die today? Feeling depressed, and then having this facade and this armor and this shell to just put on the fake smile and go with the flow. So it splits the psyche. It creates, a separate personality, a persona that I had to live with. It's like the story of the two wolves. You're feeding, the bad wolf, the shadow aspect, or the higher self. And one is getting stronger because you're feeding it more. So I was internally in battle with another version of myself. So it was dark. It was dark. And just the process of that was literally looking in the mirror and sitting down and doing work, asking myself these questions, pad, pen, writing it down, thinking about it every day, and then focusing on my habits. What I did was I just kicked my whole operation to a very simplistic modality of just day by day, hour by hour. I called it a magic journal, where I literally charted out every hour of every day. And that helped me drastically because it gave me insight. It gave me awareness of, my behaviors, my habits, and my inner thoughts and emotions.
Okay, so that is super powerful and so important because you just took us on, and thank you for sharing the journey. You took us on this journey. It was a 2-year span of time.
Mhm.
There is no quick fix. So there is no pill. Years ago, I wrote a book called Peace Doesn't Come in a Pill because so many of my clients would look for the pill. And then 10 years later, they're still on the same pill, but nothing has changed. Nothing has improved, and they're dwindling down. in spiraling down. Now, if you put a pause, just like stop right there, when you're experiencing, you said you were in deep fear, depression, then that was a split psyche, and you went and you talked about all of these symptoms that we hear about, where take a pill for that, mask that, look the other way, ignore it, put the happy smile on, and
Yes.
then you described doing the work and simplifying day by day. You used a magic journal. I love that. And
Hmm.
asking the questions every day.
Yep.
That's the work.
Absolutely.
That is the work. And the majority seem to be looking the other way. Why do you think that is?
Well,
Besides, oh
it's
yeah, it's uncomfortable, but come on.
yeah, yeah. I mean, ultimately, it does stem from a place of fear, right? Fear of the unknown, fear of change, and that is, the shadow aspect is it's the stronger wolf. But to starve that wolf, it is an hour by hour, day by day process. And suffering is the great teacher, but it doesn't have to be, right? You can learn information and knowledge and apply it, so it's secondhand and you can apply that to yourself. But for most people, when they ignore this process of improvement, it's just sending them deeper and deeper down into kind of the pit of despair. Um, and that's the easy way out, right? Ignoring it is easy. Being lazy and cowardice and ignoring the
In the
work.
short term, though,
Yeah,
you and I both know that
absolutely.
in the short term, it
Well
may
said.
seem easier, but the now that we have more experience and can see this, it is not. It is far more painful, as we can see with
Yes.
our parents who are suffering deeply, and then, generationally. So let's tie this in then to how you will actually, and if you are communicating to your daughter
Hmm.
as a father who knows this and who went through it prior to bringing someone in the world, and now being the steward of this precious soul and life, and how has that evolved, and how much, especially at her age, are you teaching and guiding her, and how does that look?
Great question. I love it. Yes. So I am very pragmatic and honest with my daughter. I tell her I don't lie to her. I don't shield the world from her. But then again, I don't want to imbue knowledge into her, right? Like on repetition. I see this kind of in the freedom movement and the spiritual movements where, their children can memorize a lot of great stuff, but that does not equate to actual wisdom, to understanding certain concepts or ideas. So our approach is experience. And when we participate, and my daughter and I, when we are proactive in the world, there's I apply kind of the philosophical approach. And I can give you a great example during the lockdowns, right? Of, like the pandemic, the COVID time period. I took my daughter out into the world so we could go into the store without a mask and not put her in harm's way for a confrontation, but to show her how I interact with somebody trying to violate my rights, show how other people are operating, and have her connect the dots with me being the facilitator of these lessons. Right. So it's not giving her the answers. It's hand in hand. We're walking through, we're being proactive. We are experiencing life, right? The real schoolyard, which is just living. And being that facilitator. And there's nothing that gives me better joy than seeing my daughter connect dots, right? An example was physics just 2 days ago. About it was ice and steam, and she made the connection of expansion and contraction, and she explained it very well, even like, in a metaphysical sense. And I was like, oh, that is awesome. I didn't tell her that. She observed it and she experienced it and connected the dots. I think that type of modality and relationship with our children is very important. that we are engaged and we are proactive in the learning process with their life. We are walking with them. So not giving them the answers, but facilitating situations and interests and promoting, with resources and understanding that, my daughter is, she is a fractal of, me, of consciousness. She's her own independent being. She is going to learn her lessons. The best that I can do is to walk with her, be supportive, and um, be the knowledge, the wisdom in my very being, how I operate on a daily basis to show her what a father looks like, what a man looks like, what does a moral human being looks like, what's doing the right thing, what does that look like? Seeking truth, seeking answers, not giving up, how to fail with grace and then get back up and learn the lesson, right? All of these things. So being that example, that's the greatest gift, is giving the tool sets and this toolkit that she can use because she's on her own journey, right? And those lessons are going to approach her, and there's certain principles that we can be the example of for our children that they can apply in life. And I think that's where the empowerment is in the stewardship process of parenting.
Yeah, that's powerful. We know they learn what they live. We
Oh
can
yeah.
tell them whatever you can say all you want, but they're ultimately going to learn what they are living, and how you show up to your life. They're good little copiers.
There's profound wisdom in the relationship you have with your children because they are a mirror, right?
Oh
They're going
yeah.
to show you aspects of yourself that you have maybe not recognized. So it's fascinating. I love it. It's a great
Yeah,
journey.
it is for sure. So I want to go back to a couple things you said.
Mhm.
So when you were talking about the processing and this piece around self-discovery, the rites of passage, could you take us a little deeper in regards to someone who is not quite there yet, who is conditioned in that state of being conditioned?
Mhm.
And they are going through these pieces where it's almost like, so they're in the conditioning world, the conditioned world, right? When you said it, I thought, I wonder if it's because they are not, that they can't grow their own seed, that they can't, it's because they don't have their own seed. It's because they aren't tapped into their own original thought, their own original seed. So they can't even differentiate that there's a good wolf and there's a bad wolf because it's all just a mess. And when you were saying that, that popped into my mind, and I'm really curious if, because I know that this is the answer, that self-reflection. I know it for myself. That is why I have to do the daily work myself, and it didn't start until I was much older because I was so programmed, so conditioned, and was operating off of this very false. And that's who I thought I identified myself with. And I think so many leaders, so many individuals do I misidentify themselves. And that is probably part of the conditioning. So taking that back, how would you start to unravel that for someone? How would you, as a leader, and I know you're doing it through your teaching, but in this moment right now, what would be the first step?
The first step to break the conditioning.
Well, so you're using the words break the conditioning. Is that even possible?
So I'll say something because you mentioned seed, and I really like that. In some cases, for some people, it's the soil.
Mm,
It is their external environment,
hmm.
whether that means they need to, rid certain relationships, distance themselves from, abusers of, friends, family, whatever that may be, or even something as cleaning their house, right? Getting the external environment in order, getting the soil. Maybe it's, transitioning from a job, but regardless, it's still recognizing that there is an issue. And that's kind of the scary part for people, right? I think in their heart, intuitively, they know that, but there's that refusal. And no one can really do that for you. That is like you're calling the seed, the starting point, that 0 point. It's the choice of starting. The only thing I think that people can do, and what I aim to do in my work, is inspiration. You can, you know, you can rant on people all you want. It doesn't matter. You can't force someone to make that recognition and to start the work, right? It has to derive from the source, from one's own free will choice. But yet inspiration is a slightly different influence, because inspiration, very similar to art, that's what I kind of call my work. It's an art form. Art speaks to not only to the mind, to the logic, to reason, but mainly to the heart. And I think that's the entrance point for inspiration, inspiring someone to look, to make that choice, to either be better, to look at certain aspects of their own life, to look at the dark, and the dark elements of society. And when we inspire someone to do that, it's activating the heart space, it's activating care, and that has profound effects on someone. I know it did on me when I was going through that process. I was really diving into certain spiritual teachings, mainly occultism and philosophy, and even the music I was listening to. It was like ambient nature sounds, right? But it was a certain frequency, and it was just beautiful. It was almost like a fantasy type of theme. So I was kind of setting up the soil of what I was taking in: music, information. I was, eating clean, cleaning my house, right? Getting rid of junk. So it was kind of a twofold process. I needed something to inspire me. And that's what I was kind of, seeking out. And I received it, right? Ask and you shall receive. So this is where, people like yourself and like me, I think we strive to inspire, because that definitely activates care and gives someone that extra influence, that extra push to take the step, to look the direction, to make the jump. And, ultimately, I think that's as much as we can do, um, because we can't force the process.
Mhm.
Suffering and life itself will do the rest, for sure.
Mhm. It's interesting because in this is a culture that could be created within an organization to foster this natural ability to do the inner work and bring that overall sense of well-being. I mean, it is really what I would hope that any leader would do if they're creating or have an impact in an organization, in their organization, and creating something in the business world and professionally. This is something that I hope that anyone who wants to inspire in a profound way could take these tools to heart. They're definitely not the mainstream. Clearly, I mean, you know, my audience isn't necessarily totally aware of this. So this may land as a shock to some when I'm interviewing finance, people in tech and all of that, where that's the last thing on their mind. But this is one of the fundamental pieces that you mentioned, and that is activating that heart space, activating the care. And as you do that, I think naturally, because you're a musician, you're a creator, you're an artist, so it would just seem that that's more natural for you. And knowing that it's a skill, it can be learned. And I think that that's an important piece for leaders who are very much stuck in this, or think they are, because that's a belief in itself, that you are all left brain or all thinking in numbers and I have to do it this way. That's again that belief. So you get to activate that part of yourself. That's what I heard you say, and I love that.
Mhm.
And that part of that, it, instead of being afraid of it, but leaning into that suffering. And if you, the sooner you do it, the better, because you're just prolonging your suffering, if I
That's
heard you
right.
correctly. Yeah.
Yes, correct.
Okay. Really wise words. I love this. So if we look forward in your life, 1 year, 5 years, I kind of age it. My boys are 16 and 18, so I'm progressing based on those numbers. Like what's gonna,
Yes, I
because 1 year
understand.
is significant at 12
Mhm.
to 13, significant, right? So look ahead, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years. How do you envision your legacy?
That is beautiful. My legacy will live on through my daughter. I mean, I'm thrilled to see her grow into her own self, and and I will be there on those events that she has. Excuse me. Um, and I'm excited for that, and who knows what that has in store for her. And I think that's part of the excitement. I want to be around for that. So, I mean, I focus on myself, trying to keep myself in good shape, um, and just going along with the journey. I mean, as far as my own work, I'm still going to constantly, do this type of art form. Maybe even get back into music as well. Who knows? Um, I I like to take a simplistic approach. I'm very much kind of a water element, and I just kind of flow with the wave, the waves a little bit. I'm very in tuned with gardening and herbalism, so I see myself, almost doing a an evolutionary kind of homestead, and also doing the technological work as well. So, my daughter and I talked about kind of traveling around the country and doing some traveling in the next, several years, if that allows. So there's going to be some journeys, and I'm open. I think this is the key. It's just expectations will always kind of let you down, right? So I tend not to have expectations. I try to operate in the now and to control what I can control and make the right choices, but not to have expectations. Because what you were saying about care is love. I did a whole presentation on the science of love, and it equates to care because that's the generative principle. That's the generating principle. So when I look into the future of my life, I'm simply in a place of being receptive and open, doing what I can now, getting everything in order mentally, emotionally, my resources, financially, health, and just being in that state of receptive. So I'm ready for my next, initiatory event in my life. And when that happens, like you said, I will lean into it. I will act on it with open arms and with care, right? So that's kind of the mindset that I'm in the next few years. Um, and yeah, just ready for the ride.
Mm.
As you know, having kids, I remember my dad and friends telling me, "Oh, it goes by so fast. It goes by so fast." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. I don't really have a perception of that yet." Now my daughter will be 12 soon, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, it goes by so fast."
Yeah.
So our timeline is very much kind of synchronistic to our kids' life as well, like you were saying.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so I want to unpack just a quick piece and then I'll go on to the
Cool.
next question. But here's what comes up for me. And you said generating principle.
Hmm.
And there's some words, nomenclature wise, really important to me because I think that that hangs up a lot of us. We get hung up because the words, the vocabulary that's used, kind of thrown out there, and then people don't avail themselves of actually inspecting and learning deeply, what does
Yes.
this mean? So two things in your introduction, your bio, that I wanted to come back to: authentic liberty. So authentic, oh my gosh, it's so overused.
Yes, I know.
So let's go deeper on that, and let's go deeper on liberty. Just a brushstroke on it, but deep. Deep brushstroke, please, as
Sure.
an artist.
Absolutely.
And yeah, so tell us about that, because you say it's the foundational principles of authentic leadership. So
Yes.
help me understand that fully.
These are great questions. I think definitions, and I 100% agree with you. People get hung up on definitions. Then, there's a miscommunication. I'm using a definition, and the viewers might have their own perceived definition, and then kind of, the message can get lost because there's no clarity of meaning, which is what definition means. So I love defining words, I love defining phrases, all this kind of stuff. Authentic liberty. So when we're talking about authentic, it means that we are authoring, right? Authoring what? Authoring our own actions, our own accountability and responsibility that we have in life, right? So when we look towards certain controlling structures in society that are claiming to be, the authors, the authority, which is, an illusion in and not real in nature, we author our own actions. We are responsible for our thoughts, emotions, and actions. So that's what I mean by authentic liberty. There's a sense of accountability and responsibility on the individual, right? Because the collective is our human condition in society is based upon individuals and our individual actions, accountability, and our ability to respond to life, right? To these events. And then liberty, liberty and freedom are interchangeable on certain aspects. I equate with liberty just as the word liber means book and also means liberty, right? In Latin, the actual word has the same meaning. You have to have knowledge. That's what liber is. It's knowledge. And liberty is freedom, but it's the next level because you have the knowledge of freedom. You have the knowledge and the understanding of the dynamics that create freedom, either in one's life, on the individual um, aspect, and on the collective aspect, the human condition. So, authentic liberty means having that responsibility to know what freedom is, to know how to change and what are the dynamics of change itself to cause freedom. Does that make sense?
That right there is gold. I
Excellent.
noted down the time because I want to make sure I'm going to go back, and that is gold right there. And how
Beautiful.
you described author, and then when you were saying liberty, the book, and understanding that you are writing, you are
Yes.
creating in any given moment. And then you said something else which was really interesting, and that is that look, it comes down to the individual. It is that piece. And there's a lot of this statement, take personal responsibility, but a lot of that personal responsibility is taken as blame or shame or regret or guilt, or which is all that construct of convoluted nonsense.
Yes.
And this piece of, I mean, could you imagine if every child that was brought into the world started with that fundamental understanding that they are able to author, and also that those parents, that the mothers and fathers are the caregivers of those children, that they actually were modeling that.
Mm-hmm.
And you can just see how we got to where we are right now today. You can see it.
Correct.
And then you could
Absolutely.
also see how we can change it, and that it ultimately does start with ourselves.
Yep.
It starts with our
100%.
individual, exactly what you just said, and the knowledge. So good.
I have a
Very good.
catchphrase, real quick and additive. I have a catchphrase that I use in all my work, and that is to simplify the profound. So I love to take, or even, personal responsibility. Okay, what is that?
Hmm.
Right? And let's unpack these terms that we use on a day-to-day basis that, a lot of people don't really question. And that's where we get the higher definition, the clarity, by unpacking. And this is kind of the philosophical realm that I like to dive into, but on a simplistic level. We can bring it down, many notches so people can kind of comprehend and we can get better understanding.
Yeah,
Uh,
it reminds
yeah,
me of what Emerson and Thoreau. I really enjoy reading their works, and as I would read one and this, and then read some of the other books of those that were in that kind of the salon time and that whole, they were discussing these, just like you just gave me such broader understanding of two words that I use regularly and throw them around, and this discussion needs to take place, and I think it's very important for leaders to lead discussions like this and lead a way that opens for discussions, that you're not made wrong for any of your
yes,
thoughts, but it's you're allowed to take a moment and think differently and unpack it. And I would love to start creating more salons in the world where you just get to go in and have these kinds of discussions, where it's not this
absolutely.
dogmatic, whatever it is. Could you imagine just having those places, especially for teens, especially and as your daughter starts to move into the teens, it's either the digital device and that's their life, or
Yep,
not. It doesn't have
that's
to be.
right.
So as leaders, I think creating these new areas, and they're not new, right? They're just they haven't been initiated, I think, in our current culture. And so what a gift. What you just said, that whole little snippet was like that. How can we have more of that, these discussions? And I guess podcasts
Yes,
are doing that, but I don't think that's enough, because it's you and I having this discussion. We need to have more where we're in the room. It reminds me of a picking circle, since you're a musician. I don't know if you remember
exactly.
having those picking circles
Yeah, a little
where you'd
jam
go
sesh.
around and I would just shake my egg
That's right.
while my husband was playing the guitar. And all it was like, I could shake the egg, or I could do, whatever, play the spoons. No, I don't do
Yeah.
the spoons, but I could shake an egg. So this is what I would love to see brought back. And I just have to ask you though, can you unpack the generative principle the way you just did, especially as it goes to, I wrote down emotional, I don't know if it was the emotional resource, as a key piece. A lot of folks get afraid of their emotions. So can you unpack that and how that goes with the generative principle, since it's, I would
Absolutely.
assume, tied together?
Yeah. So the generative principle is the principle of care itself, right? And what this principle
So hang
states,
on.
mhm,
The generative principle.
correct.
Break the words down.
Got it. Generative meaning the generating, the initiating. Um, Generare in Latin means to create. So this is the creating aspect, right? How we Here's another buzzword: manifestation, the law of attraction, the law of manifestation. This is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the creating point, the 0 point of creating. Either,
Before the seed,
um,
or before, at the
the
conception
seed,
of the
the,
idea
the seed
prior to the seed.
is the seed is the generative principle, right? So that is the care. You can have seeds within you, right? But you have to apply willpower. So the care is a feminine aspect and willpower is a masculine aspect. So when they come together, that's when it is, it ignites, in a metaphorical term. So I'll kind of unpack that a little bit as I go on. And so what this principle states, right, is what you truly care about is what will manifest. So this goes hand in hand with self-improvement and looking at oneself, right? Because we talked about earlier how people are ignoring doing the work because they don't care to do that, right? So that the generative principle is not activating. It's not generating in their life.
Doesn't mean it's not there. It's just dormant, correct?
Correct. Correct. Absolutely. Absolutely. Because when you apply willpower, which is the active aspect, then you are acting on it. You are making that choice to care, to follow through, to
But when
look.
they're acting off of something that is not their truth and aligned with their care, this is what creates disharmony. Would you agree or
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because free will itself is just potential, right? It's having free will is not actual, it is potential. Um, I I use the analogy of an acorn and an oak tree. An acorn and an oak tree are genetically identical, but you can't get lumber from an acorn. So what's the catch? They're genetically identical. The catch is that the acorn is activated and becomes the oak tree. This is the same thing. You can have the acorn inside you, you can have the seed inside you, meaning, intuitively down in your unconscious mind, you have to look at a certain aspect of your life, but it hasn't activated yet. That's because of the principle of care. You need to care, your focus, your attention, and your willpower needs to be, you know, um, focused on that seed,
so
on that
if
aspect.
if let's take it that, okay, all of us have within us the generative principle, that seed, and within us the ability, we have the ability. It's
Correct.
not a skill we have to develop, it is innate, correct?
Absolutely. We
Okay,
use it every day, to be honest.
okay,
So,
so there's the care, we have it there, right? And
mhm,
then there's the will, which is the choice. Okay, what am I going to choose with that? And
correct.
then you take the action. Why is it, maybe it's the wrong question, or maybe it's the wrong, I'm not sure how we'll say this, but okay. So how is it that someone would choose to actually do harm? Is it because where did it go off? In the care or at the action?
At
Be,
the care, with
so
care.
what happened? What happened?
Well, I'll reflect on my journey, right? So with my drug addiction, and I made the choice to, I had the care, that care activated for me to sit in the mirror and start writing, using my journal and start looking at myself, right? And that's where these initiatory events take place, where we need to lean into them, right?
But
We
let's
need
go
to
back
take
to where you cared about the drugs enough to do them, to take that action, right?
exactly. So
So
that's where my care was.
so
You
now
could look
let's
at
go,
care as energy almost.
okay, so let's go before and before and before.
Mhm.
You wanted to have the drugs, or it was part of the thing that you cared about, which was music and creating music. So was that part of your tribe, and then that's part of the soil or the environment you were talking about earlier?
Correct.
How does all of that intertwine? And it's kind of like I am asking, what came first, the chicken or the egg? That's what I'm asking. Ultimately, I want to know, because
Yeah.
I want to know the root cause. I want to know the source of it, so that can we unravel this, right? Because we are,
Yes.
there's a speeding train going very, very fast, and a lot are trying to like get off of it, or they're trying to redirect it or whatever, in this whole, if we go into the hermetic laws, okay, so fine, we'll go into the law of duality or polarity or blah, blah, blah. But the fact of the matter is we're here existing in this moment.
Yes.
How do we get here? Whoa, stop the train. The train's not stopping. It's not going to stop, folks. Sorry.
Hmm.
So do we need to go back and know the exact source of where the seed went wrong? And did the seed actually ever go wrong? I mean, you see what I'm saying? Because I don't
Yes.
know. The seed could never have gotten wrong, because the acorn was as old as the acorn. And the acorn could not become a maple tree, or could not become a shark, you see what I'm saying? So
Yes.
how did all that, like, what happened? Something had to happen. What
Yeah,
happened?
for sure. And, I mean, we might not know that aspect, but something I can kind of touch on is that they both exist, right? And what I mean by that is we have mind, all is mind, the universe is mental. That's also the field of consciousness that is around us, that we are influencing everything. Everything in nature, in this reality, comes down to relationships, right? You and I are having a relationship right now. I have a relationship with my computer, the condition it is in, with my daughter, with my neighbors. Everyone and everything is influencing each other. So that you can look at as the soil. Then we can implant seeds. And for instance, in my experience, I cared more about music career, partying, drugs than I did about becoming a better person. There was an external influence that inspired me to change the direction of my care. That was, becoming a father, a few other things. Care is always there. It's always in operation, right? It's really like a subset of just mentalism. It's the all-encompassing principle of all the Hermetic principles. But you can look at it on a simplistic as focus and attention, energy. So you and we care right now to have this conversation. If I don't care enough to look at myself on a health aspect and what I put in my body, then I'm going to suffer the consequences of that, of the care or lack of care. So that's kind of, you know,
Yeah, no, it's powerful. And it's exactly why I wanted to have you on, because I believe it is so vital that we have leaders who understand this, and that you as a leader know you are influencing, you have relationships, that people are looking at you, and you have so much potential. And the more you understand these principles, and you start by leading yourself first, we can transform the world. And it is going to take leaders. It's definitely not going to take followers, because we need the leaders who are stepping up. And it's not, there's time, as you said, with relationships, there's a time where I am following. I want to follow what you're saying and listen and be a part of that. So that's huge. And I love
yeah,
what you said, influencing and creating that. So time is just like warp speed
I'm
here.
loving it. I'm loving it. It's
Thank you
great.
so much for this. I have a couple more questions here.
Okay.
And the one that I thought would be, besides, I definitely want your book recommendations. One
Okay.
thing that I love asking my guests is specifically what you would say is, you probably have said this, but maybe you could think a little bit on what is maybe the most important lesson that you've learned about sustaining this, and I'll call it resilience, because that's part of it as well, this process of upward spiraling, doing the work to go upward as opposed to going down the pole. And then what advice would you give to, I'll say leaders, because I believe every one of our children are going to be leading, and they are
Absolutely.
leading right now with their peers, etc. It's like, so those two questions, and then I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh yeah, no, my pleasure. This is a great conversation. And you're absolutely right. A leader creates more leaders, inspires leaders, right? So, we don't want followers. I don't want to be a spiritual guru. And people have kind of said that to me, and I said, "No, I am not that. I'm not." Mentorship is a better aspect, right? Because we can mentor each other, right? For, influence and inspiration. How I stay vigilant is the process of self discovery, is the process of care. And that is a day to day basis. You have to be in tune and in alignment with yourself to see the markers, see the triggers, and know the when, how, and why. When I'm getting burned out, what do I do to ground myself, decompress. I have to know that. That's a part of knowing myself. So I go and get, my feet and my butt in the dirt and do some gardening. That's what I love to do. Go on a hike, spend time with my daughter. What are the triggers, the emotional triggers? Maybe if I'm, having dealing with a family member and they say something that triggers me, why is that trigger there? Why did I get triggered? So just knowing yourself, staying vigilant in this time period where it's a conveyor belt of events and everything is getting faster and faster. So really understanding your your habits. I call it rituals. That's what rituals are. It's just habits, the process of, the things that you do on a day-to-day basis, morning, mid, night, and just really staying focused on those aspects. That's how I stay vigilant. It's very simple. And then I just, I know myself and I continue to seek improvement on myself. And
Powerful.
that's one thing that I see. It's just burnout, right? When you're kind of doing this type of work or really any work, there's a giving and a receiving. And if you are expelling yourself too much and not replenishing back, then
Mm.
yes, absolutely you will get burnt out. So it's just understanding those markers and those signs and symbols within yourself and in your environment to take a step back or to do whatever you have to do in your own unique, individual, expressive process.
So much wisdom. I love it. Know yourself, conveyor belt of events,
Yeah.
and knowing when to checking those markers. Yeah, that's profound. Okay, so what are your top? I'll just I like asking what's your favorite book or what's your top book, but I bet you have more than one. So what's your
Oh yeah.
1 to 3 books that have profoundly impacted you and how you lead your life?
I consider myself a book junkie, and yes, I do read them. And many of them I've done audiobooks. Yes, I see your library. I have a whole room. It's so hard to pinpoint like just a few books, but I'll tell you ones that will absolutely add value to your life. Um, to understand what's going on today and for the principles of authentic liberty, The End of All Evil by Jeremy Locke. This person was anonymous. I mean, there is Jeremy Locke, but that was just his pen name. And he wrote this book and disappeared. So this book is really hard to find until recently someone started printing out physical copies. It's a short read. It's only, 100 pages. Fantastic principles in there to apply to oneself. Absolutely mind blowing. The next one is a little more pithier and deeper, but I think people should go there, and that is Monad. So this is Plotinus, and um, this is written by or translated because it's ancient Greek, translated by Thomas Taylor. Fantastic translation. This will send your mind on a journey of true philosophical metaphysics. And I like to go there. So that is, an epic book. And of course, um, The Stellar Man by John Baines. Fantastic. Again, principles to apply to oneself with the alchemical process. Very good, The Stellar Man. So those are my three that I'll say you can't go wrong with any of those.
Oh, it makes me so happy when I get new titles. I haven't heard of the second two, but The End of All Evil is absolutely a must read. And
Yes,
that
absolutely.
monad looks a little bit deeper. I probably won't get through that this year, but I
It's a huge investment. It's one that you kind of just take,
Mm,
chapter by chapter over maybe a year or two. But
awesome,
all
awesome.
of John Baines' work is great. This is The Science of Love. Fantastic book. He's a hermeticist, so he comes from the hermetic arts and science
Mm,
aspect.
okay.
Profound wisdom in there.
Very, very cool. Oh,
Yeah,
excited. Thank you for that. New
my
authors,
pleasure.
super fun. Okay, so how can our listeners connect with you, follow your work? what are the resources that you'd like to share? I'm definitely going to tag that presentation you did. So fantastic. Thank you. What a
Absolutely.
gift. So what's the best way?
I really enjoyed doing that presentation. I actually gave that at the Seed conference, and then I did an extended one, live on my channels. And I really enjoyed doing it. It flowed very nicely. So I appreciate the compliment. My main website to get to all of my work is willkeller.com. You can even get to my One Great Work network page, where it's just a conglomerate of like-minded content creators under, creating true freedom, natural law, morality, spirituality, hosted by Mark Passio of What on Earth is Happening. So you can get there from my website, willkeller.com, and also my original podcast series, Natural Freedom League, which my partner John and I started 5 years ago, and we had fantastic guests on our podcast. So I highly recommend checking those out. There's some really great features and cameos on there. And then also one event that I will promote February 26th and 23rd. We are doing the fourth annual Funnel Conference. That's the FUNL. It stands for Freedom Under Natural Law. It's a 2-day online, live, free virtual event. A lot of engagement, some really good speakers and presenters. It's a 2-day event with live roundtables at the end. I'm one of the co-creators of that, so you can also get to that on my website as well. And I love being responsive with my viewership. Anybody has any questions, clarifications, email me through my website or even through social media platforms. I try to respond to all messages at all times, and I love engagement. So when you messaged me to come on here, I was super grateful and excited.
I am incredible. When I saw it, I was like, "Oh, look at this! This is so exciting!" Sometimes it's super fun to actually just reach out, especially when you've been impacted so positively by someone's work, and then they respond back. So thank you for that. That was a gift for me this week.
My pleasure.
Well, what an incredibly thought-provoking and inspiring conversation with our special guest, Will Keller. I would say his leadership insights, while maybe we didn't directly think about leadership, I want us to get outside of this box of this is what leadership looks like
Mm.
and understand this holistic principle. Definitely, it can apply to parenting and how you show up to your our children, and even if you don't have your own folks, they are watching you, and there's such an opportunity to inspire. And that's, I think, the inspire and influence piece that Will has shared today is incredible. And I have some great takeaways myself. But it is an incredible responsibility that we hold as influencers on the next generation, and also remind ourselves that there is a ripple effect on using the care piece for sure, but the ripple effect of our actions. And if they're not in alignment, we can only look around our world to see the out of alignment and the disharmony that's going on with what our actions have done, whether that's in the past. And so now what do we have to do? We take the responsibility right now, and we respond differently, without shame, without blame, without all the other BS that I think is what holds people back and that keeps us stuck in fear, is that we care about ourselves first, right? We have to lead ourselves first, and that care, knowing within ourselves and just loving that piece of us. And I can just see you going through your journey of knowing that you have a precious life on the way, and having enough strength to move through. Addictions are tough. So to be
Hmm.
able to do that, I admire you so much, and thank you for sharing that story. So again, if you'd like to connect with Will and dive deeper into his work, be sure to check out his work. I saw his episode on the One Great Work Network. That's why I saw his presentation, but please check out willkeller.com and explore his content on natural law, holistic psychology, and conscious parenting. And check out his conference. We will make sure we have that link so that you can find out more. It is February 26th. I thought I heard you say 23rd, but
22nd and 23rd.
22nd and 23rd. Thank you. So February
Yeah.
22nd and 23rd is right around the corner. So knowing that it's online, we have no excuses to be there. I'm going to make sure I am there. Thank you again,
Fantastic.
Will, so much. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us today. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to this episode of Lead Stronger Longer. If you found today's conversation as insightful and empowering as I did, please take a moment to subscribe, leave a review, share this episode with someone who would benefit from these lessons on purposeful leadership. And remember, you have the power to lead with integrity and care and create a positive impact and achieve your goals without sacrificing what matters most. Stay inspired, stay strong, and keep leading your life and your business with purpose. Until next time, I'm Stefana Johnson, and reminding you to lead stronger, longer.